I think we're all getting a bit thirsty for some Streakers Island podcast. Chazzy's got his water today. He's going to get the milk for the second segment. So, of course, we got Chazzy, the CEO, and Mr. More for your money.
Woo!
We have an action-packed show today. The NFL is looking to make some major changes when it comes to how they're tying what's a first down and their overtime rules in the regular season. The Leafs are facing some injuries. What does that mean for the team? Trade deadline coming up. What's going on? The Argos, have they gotten better or have they gotten worse? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to take a closer look at another NHL team heading into the deadline. But let's get into the Toronto Maple Leafs and the injury issues. So the Leafs came off of a big comeback win against Boston. I got the 5-goal part right. Just I thought Stolarz was only going to let it 1. Good 4. But they did win.
I got the overtime part right.
Yeah, but you said Boston was going to win. You two Brad Marchand lovers.
I said I've picked Toronto. My bad.
But Canadian.
Toronto struggled with some injuries in this one. Chris Tanev left early in the first period, and William Nylander did not play in the overtime. Now, we're seeing Nylander on the bench. It looked like he was laboring his wrist. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly not good for a guy that's a shooter.
Hey, maybe he types too much on the keyboard.
I don't think he's a keyboard
What
warrior.
do they call it? Hypochondrial syndrome or something like that?
Carpal tunnel.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's carpal tunnel.
And Tanev with the upper body injury, which from where he took the hit, the way he skated off, I'm going to speculate that's a hip injury. Again,
yeah, but is it a hip or mid-body injury?
Not confirmed, obviously.
Yeah, but I was asking in theory, if a hip was injured, would that be considered mid-body?
There is no such thing as a mid-body injury, Mr. Brian Burke.
Yeah, well, it's Pac-Man that invented that, but yeah.
What does this mean
Rest in peace.
To the Toronto Maple Leafs? You guys might call me crazy. I almost think the Tanev injury is bigger than the Nylander injury if these both go long-term. The Leafs have the depth in the offense that I feel they can get it done. I don't know if they have the same depth in the defense because you look at the penalty kill that game. It was god-awful without Chris Tanev in it.
Oh, yeah.
Jake McCabe really struggled that game. I thought Riley had one of his best games in a while, which we'll get into that later. But to me, this makes a really big concern because who would drop back into the lineup is probably Philip Myers. And Philip Myers, I think, is a decent 7th to 8th defenseman, like a guy that comes in rotation sometimes. But if Tanev's injury turns out to be more than the day-to-day that the Leafs are saying, because remember, they said Austin Matthews was a day-to-day injury that lasted almost a month, which I guess that was just day-to-day. But Chazzy, I want to throw this to you here. How big of a deal do you think it is for the Leafs to lose a guy like Chris Tanev, especially when they're making a push to try to win the division?
No, I think you're right. The core of the D is not deep. And like you said, he's on the penalty kill. He's a weapon. So my question to you guys is, like, you talked about with Matthews out with the line juggling and everything. Now what do you do with Nylander out with all the line juggling? And I know we're going to get into the next topic here with Max Domi and a couple of guys coming back, Yarkov coming back. Like, where do you start now on sort of like mixing your top 9?
So right now what I'm doing, and Dan's going to get so mad when I say this, Nicky Robertson jumps up to the second line because he's on a tear right now. He had a couple nice plays in the last game with a goal and an assist. He is a guy that with minimal space and time has been able to put up points in the last, it's pretty much in 2025. So I think he's a guy you got to move up. And then you're hoping that maybe a guy like Steve Lorentz or Alexander Steves can move into that third line position. And maybe now Ryan Reeves gets a chance to get back in the lineup if Yarncroke's not back in time. If Yarncroke's back Friday, I don't think Ryan Reeves gets back in this lineup at all. Dan, you're shaking your head.
You guys are forgetting one important piece. Rumors speculate that Max Pacioretty might be back on Friday.
True.
Okay. So that kind of fixes that problem. And I think, even though Max Pacioretty's older, he's not a William Nylander caliber player, he was at one point a 30-plus goal scorer. So it's definitely good to have him. It's good to have his physicality, which he adds to the lineup. I think the player that's going to benefit the most, well, sounds bad benefiting from an injury, but I think the player that's going to benefit the most is going to be Bobby McMahon. Bobby McMahon has always been kind of a third line guy, and on a lot of teams, he would be definitely a top 6 forward. So I see the first line being Knives, Marner, and Matthews. The second line being McMahon, Tavares, and Patches. And the third line, I would do Wabison, Domi, and Holberg, with Holberg's been looking pretty good the last couple games. And fourth line, you still have Rolentz, Kemp, and either Reeves or Steves, just depending on the flavor or spice you feel for the month kind of thing. I would love to see Ryan Reeves work his way back in the lineup because he adds big physicality to the team and he adds a lot on the leadership on the bench in the dressing room. So we'll see what happens.
I'm just gonna say straight up, Ryan Reeves is not getting back in this lineup unless no one's coming back, because they've been really starving for bottom 6 scoring, and Ryan Reeves is the complete opposite of bottom 6 scoring.
Yeah,
when he's not fighting, he's bottom 6 snoring. He doesn't do much besides. And don't get me wrong, I get that's a big part of a team. And I'm not even saying if you face a Boston in the first round, then yeah, maybe Ryan Reeves draws back into the lineup. But right now, I don't think he does. I'm looking at, as you said, Pacioretty's close. Yarn Croak is close. I'm still hearing Connor Dewar's not that far off. And I get what you're saying of Bobby McMahon to a point, but I feel right now you got to go with the hot hand. And right now the hot hand is Nick Robertson. So get Nick Robertson the ice time and move him up. And the reason why I'm also saying it too is, let's be honest, if he's playing with Tavares, and whether it's Pacioretty or you go with Robertson, Tavares, McMahon line, they're going to need someone to be able to attack the line with speed. And Nick Robertson can attack the line with speed. He's a guy that likes sport check. Even though he's not the biggest, strongest guy in the league, he does play a physical style game.
He's not wet by any means.
No, but I'm still more concerned about the Tanev injury.
So back to you, JMO, here. I know you've been talking on the island here the last few weeks about Brock Nelson, some forwards that are available. Now, does this change your philosophy going into the trade deadline of, okay, let's not look at the forwards. We're sort of a mid-tier or top stud that we can get back on the blue line to sort of like give that insurance going into the playoffs?
Honestly, yes, because now, again, you have some time before the deadline. So let's say Tanev is out for a bit. You get Philip Myers in there. You get McCabe and Benoit playing really strong together. Riley and Ekman-Larsson playing well together. And Timmins and Myers only has to play 8 to 10 minutes and try not to screw the game. Then maybe you leave it. But if it's not working, then you absolutely go for like a Labushkin or a Shen. I've seen people go on about Jones, but they can't afford him out of Chicago.
Yeah, it's not going to work for Toronto. No.
Like, I think you more are going that route. And I think the Leafs, instead of going for the home run defenseman, is just going to go for the good defenseman. We also got to remember, Hakanpää is practicing. So that's the whole other thing, too. But we don't know what Hakanpää is going to be like coming back in the lineups. He's only played, I believe, 3 or 4 games all season.
2.
Well, 4.
I am the calculator, you know.
You're Mr. Calculator. So I'm just looking at it, and I think, Chazzy, as we talked about before, guys like Brock Nelson or Braden Shen. But if you're looking, if there's a limited cap space available, it's the exact same discussion we had about Edmonton on Tuesday. You have to address the biggest hole in your lineup. And the biggest hole in the Leafs lineup is depth defense. Yeah. And I think depth defense that are more of a defensive defenseman. Like, Connor Timmins is a pretty decent puck mover. But Morgan Riley and Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Jake McCabe isn't terrible offensively. I don't think you're really concerned about the offense from the defense as much as that's all the media wants to talk about.
Yeah, who cares?
I think you're more worried about the defensive defensemen because you have to look at who is out and who are you replacing them with.
Right.
So Chris Tanev is one of the better shutdown defensemen in the NHL. I think we can all agree to that. He usually leads the league in block shots. He plays very physical, and him and Jake McCabe
plus 26.
Very good shutdown pairing. And Dan, you're right, a plus 26. So bringing in a Brock Nelson doesn't fill that gap. I get maybe he helps fill the Nylander gap, but again, I'm more concerned about the back end than the offense because I feel the offense with Matthews, Tavares, and Marner, even without Nylander, that should be enough. Those 3 guys should be able to take bigger minutes and make something happen. And now Marner's been doing that of late, right? I mean, he had a great game against Boston. He must love playing at TD Gardens of late after the Four Nations and now this. And I mean, Matthews was buzzing around the net a lot again. You're getting more scoring from your bottom six. I'm more concerned about the defense right now if I'm Toronto going into this deadline.
The other hiccup too is okay, maybe we can survive with Chris Tanev being out full bit and coming back in. But the hiccup is what happens if Jake McCabe goes down and blocks 100-mile-an-hour slap shot? Then what? And that's the thing. We're so on the line there of one more injury and this team's in the biggie trouble on their defense. So I think I agree with you, Jacob. I think a defense of that reason is very important. I think this is a big moment for Sam Benoit to step up. He had a very good year last year. This year has been a little hit and miss. But with Tanev out, I thought Benoit played very well in Boston. And I think he's going to get some more ice time with Tanev out because he's another big physical defenseman. The other thing that just came up today, with some kind of surprise the Leafs didn't pick up on this, is Minnesota put Trevor Dermott back on waivers. And Edmonton picked him up for what? A second or third time now? So he's going back to Edmonton. And Trevor Dermott was a draft pick of the Maple Leafs. He did play in Toronto. He knows the media presser. He knows the Toronto system very well. I know he's a little more offensive and defensively. But considering he's a league minimum contract, like $775,000, and he knows history of Toronto, I would feel more comfortable with him coming in the lineup right now than Philip Myers.
I'm gonna say this too. When you're looking at some of the top defensemen that are rumored to be available at the deadline, Chazzy, I don't know. You can speak about this guy a little more as a Habs fan, but I'm looking at a guy like David Savard. He's more experienced. He's only got a cap hit of $3.5 million. Won a cup in Tampa.
Only $3.5 million?
Yeah, $3.5 million is his cap hit. He's a solid defenseman.
I'd be higher than that.
So, like Chazzy, since you watch Montreal a lot, could you see a guy like Savard sliding right into the Leafs lineup to fulfill that more of a defensive defenseman side?
I don't know if I'd like Montreal to go over to Toronto and find success, but absolutely, possibly. And it all depends on sort of the mindset Montreal is in here going into the trade deadline. Good solid game there last night, shutout. Or the other night, shutout. So, yeah, that's a veteran could fit into that Leafs lineup because of the core that they have there and the leadership. By all means, anyone could fit in there, but we'll see what happens.
I don't think Montreal's going to sell quite yet.
It really depends how they play over the next week and a half, but I think they're definitely taking phone calls on guys with expiring contracts or guys that are in their mid-30s, just because I still think Montreal's not in a win-now mode. I think they're still in a win-in-2 years mode.
I don't know. I think Montreal's the team, if they squeeze in the playoffs, will make a one.
This year. I'm with you, Jim. They're sort of like they're still young. They're still young. They got a great young core coming, and it all depends on what they want to do here going into the deadline.
Now, another great defenseman that's rumored to be be available, the Ducks potentially could be trading Rago Gunas. And I mean, at a $4 million cap hit, he went to the Cup finals and won the Cup in 2023 with the Panthers.
What's his cap hit?
Sorry, $4 million.
Yeah, so that'd be a much better fit
if you can turn this into a 3-way trade and get him down to $2 million.
Yeah.
Again, personally, I would still love to see Luke Schenn back, but obviously he's not the only defenseman available. I think Gunas, Savard. I've heard people talk Provenov, but I don't see Columbus moving him. There's been rumors about Connor Solcy, but he's in that $5 to $5.5 million range, and I don't think the Leafs being in cap hell can find a way to make that work. I think they got to find someone under $4.
I think
rent a player
again.
There is the rent a player option as well, obviously, but they still got to find a way to fit them in the cap. Dan, I agree with you. I think Labushkin could be a great thing, but when you are talking about the cap, do you move a guy like Max Domi? He hasn't scored in a very long time. I believe it's 22 or 23 games he hasn't scored in.
He hasn't scored in 2025, Will.
He has not scored all year, like in the 2025 calendar year. He's only added 3 assists over a big chunk of this span. At the $3.5 million cap hit, I mean, you got to look at with Yarncroke on the mend. Yarncroke can play center or wing, so you can move Yarncroke to that third line center, and then maybe you ship Max Domi in a move to bring in a defenseman because he is still young enough. I think a team would be willing to take a chance on him. He's had intermittent success in the NHL. I know Chazzy, when he was in Montreal, he had 1 year he was great.
70.2 points, I think, out here.
Then the rest of his time in Montreal wasn't so great. So what do you see in Max Domi? Like, he's a really hard guy to judge by his inconsistent play.
So yeah. Well, my thing is, where could he be moved? He just signed that 4-year deal. Is there any trade? My thing with you guys, back to you guys here, is like, what has changed from last year to this year to only have, like, mind you, played really well in Chicago and everything. Is it the mixture of the lines that the Leafs have went through, the inconsistency? What do you guys think in regards to what's transpired from last year to this year to see it go down?
Max Domi, it's easy to say he stopped playing with Matthews and Bertuzzi.
No, I don't think
play
it's
with Matthews, but he's a playmaker.
Yeah.
So you don't put him with the high skill guys. And I'm going to say this too. I think it's more just showing how good of a player Austin Matthews is when he's healthy, that he could turn Max Domi into the guy he was last year, playmaking ability. Mm-hmm. We're seeing it now where Max Domi's more trying to drive the line. It's not there. When he is facilitating the line, it is there. When he's trying to drive the third line, those last few games, it's been Robertson and McMahon or Robertson and Holmberg that have been driving that third line. Max Domi's just kind of been there for the ride again. And I also think sometimes he tries so hard to be that physical presence that he ends up taking too many stupid penalties. Mm-hmm. And it's tough, right? Berube wants him to play on that edge, but not go over. It's sort of the Nazem Kadri issues from the past before he kind of learned the balancing act, except mind you, Nazem Kadri could do that while still putting up 60 to 70 points consistently, where Max Domi's been doing that and he's been putting up 70 points some year. And like this year, he might not even hit 30, right? So it's tough. And I do agree, Chazzy, too, his contract's not the easiest to move at $3.5 million. But if you go to a team like Anaheim or a team like Montreal and say, look, we'll give you Max Domi and a second-round pick, plus a prospect, maybe this is the time you move a guy like Easton Cowan to try to to be able to get a big defensive piece this year.
That's who I would move.
But I don't know what to say with Max Domi. You could end up moving him and regretting it. You could end up keeping him and regretting it. He's just been so inconsistent, and he wasn't that good in the playoffs last year either.
One thing I'll say about Max Domi, I think it's a big change. I just thought of it now, actually. That's a big change between this year and last year is coaching. So maybe it's a Craig Berube defensive first style, that Domi being a playmaker is not going to fit quite well in that defensive styling, you know?
I also think Domi's struggling at playing center.
Yeah.
Center, you need that two-way game more. And as you said, Chief Berube really preaches that defense creates offense style.
Yeah.
And I don't really know if Domi's fitting in that.
Right.
I think he wants to fit in it. I even think Berube wants to make him fit in it.
Yeah.
But it's not fitting.
Unfortunately, because I do love the guy.
It's like when you got the slamming pair of jeans that just don't fit anymore. It's heartbreaking.
It is. Yeah, we all know that feeling.
But as a guy like Domi, he's kind of taken a downward trend of late. I think Morgan Riley's taken a bit of an upward trend of late. I feel his last few games, he's looked a lot better.
Yeah.
I thought the game against Boston was one of his best games all year of a goal and 3 assists.
Yeah.
Especially the assist, the game-winning goal, and the Robertson goal. Both of those assists, especially the Robertson one, was absolutely beautiful. He looks more confident again.
Yeah.
So I am really hoping this kind of takes a turn because as much as I hate saying it, you have to consider talking to Riley about waiving his no move at his salary versus his production. Yes, you do. If the Leafs go out again this year in the first round, nothing's off the table, including trading your longest serving player. Mm-hmm. Dan, I get you're shaking your head no. Chazzy, you're shaking your head like maybe. I don't know. I'm not a Leaf.
Well, I saw this on the rundown list, and I'm like, oh, I guess we're going to talk about Johnny Bobrovsky or Brodzinski out of the Rangers camp with 3 points the other night. I don't know. I was looking when you were saying Morgan Riley, looking at his shot totals. He had 173 shots last year, a +7. You look at him this year, 97 minus 13. So what has went wrong for him this year? I don't think he's turned a corner. We'll see, but I think there's still inconsistency of he's just not the same player. And I would agree with you. Maybe you do look at him to waive his no trade and make a big shakeup on that back line.
Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't do that this year with Morgan Riley personally. I think you got to ride it out.
Oh, no, I think you guys are conference finals or bust.
Right.
And I will say with Morgan Riley, you are saying it's a minus 13 now, and I'm not defending that's not good. Going in about 3 weeks ago, he was a minus 23.
Yeah.
So I want to put it into that perspective. He's trended a plus 10 over about the last month. So that's why I feel he's turned a corner. He seems to be skating better. He's moving his legs better. And we talk about the coaching system. I think maybe that's more what has taken him some time to get comfortable in Toronto again. Just trying to get used to the Brew-based style of defense, which is more defense first, battle, hit, handle the back check of the fort check, versus Sheldon Keefe was get the pucks out quick, always make the pass, never chip it off the glass, or else I'll ride your, won't say that because we don't swear on the Streakers Island podcast.
Glass.
But, Dan, what are your thoughts on Morgan Riley? I know you're shaking your head. You can't trade him. So why don't you think you can trade him? Even if the Leafs go out first round and he's a minus 30 in the first round.
I love the man, number one. Great dude. Number two, he was your high draft pick, first round.
Years ago.
Yeah, I have to still. You invested a lot into him. Okay. But big difference with last night's game that you guys ain't talking about, and I think is reason why he's struggling this year, is ice time. This is the lowest amount of ice time Morgan Riley has had his whole career. And last night, where he had 4 points, a goal, and 3 assists, and basically won the game for Toronto, was his highest ice time of the season with almost 28 minutes. Morgan Riley is used to playing 25, 28 minutes a game. And I believe this year he's down to about 22, 23. Some players play better with less ice time. Obviously, Morgan Riley's not one of those players. He plays better with more ice time. And that's one, I can't say as a positive. I don't want to see anyone hurt. But that's one thing different about Chris Tanev's injury being a thing. If Tanev is out for a little while, Morgan Riley's ice time will go up. And I think as his ice time will go up, his productions will go up. The other thing I see about Morgan Riley is, I think it's been his whole problem, his whole career being a Maple Leaf, is all great defensemen only go as far as their partner. You look at like Brian McCabe. Brian McCabe had his best, my favorite player, by the way, in the history, had his best playing career with the Hall of Fame defenseman Brian Leetz. When he wasn't with Brian Leetz, he had all his career success with Thomas Cabaret, who is definitely a Maple Leaf Hall of Famer, maybe not NHL Hall of Famer, definitely a Maple Leaf Hall of Famer. You look at Drew Doughty when he won his 2 Stanley Cups. He had his most success playing with Jake Muzzin. So you look at Scott Niedermayer's success. He had his best success playing with Scott Stevens. Chris Pronger had his best success playing with Val McInnes. I could go on all night. But I think that's a big problem with Morgan Riley. Not that he hasn't had good partners, but he hasn't had a consistent partner through his whole career.
Now, I do agree with you. That's part of the issue. But he's been able to have success with having inconsistent partners his whole career.
But imagine how much better he would be.
Let me finish. His best year of his career was when he played with Ron Hainsey, who probably should have been retired at that point.
Yeah,
I do feel with Morgan Riley, I think it's more of a coaching strategy, and I think he's starting to finally get the system, and he's figured out that happy balance between jumping up in the rush, which he's so good at, to playing more defensively. So I will be very curious to keep an eye on Morgan Riley over the rest of the season and the playoffs. But I do think if the Leafs go out early and he has a disappointing playoffs like this disappointing season, you have to at least have the conversation with him. And I'll say this too. This is where I really wish the NHL had restructuring contracts the way the NFL and the NBA does. We won't get into that really today. I just want to throw that out there as a thing that maybe the NHL should look at in the future. We are talking about some NFL rule changes.
Why would a player agree to that, though?
To help your team win.
Yeah, I guess so.
To help your team win. But let's get into the Leafs games this weekend. And remember, if you want to play along with us on the Streakers app, make sure you download the Streakers app today on your mobile devices.
Right now. Not today. Not later. As you're listening to us taking a poo-poo, do it right now.
Okay. But did you guys, for anyone who isn't as familiar with the Streakers app, did you know if you're on the app and you have your own teams and leagues in the whole 9 yards, you can add your own props?
Whoa.
So this is something that we're going to be starting to doing with our picks, starting with the Leafs versus the Rangers. So if we're getting some of our props, who's going to take Leafs versus Rangers? I hate saying it. I'm taking the Rangers because the Rangers are on a run. The Leafs can't win them all. The Rangers are going to win this one. Shesterkin's going to have a really strong game and bounce back after a weak game earlier in the week. They are going to win 3-1, third being an empty netter.
Ooh.
Dan, what are you thinking? Leafs or Rangers?
I was hoping to kind of go last here, but okay, I'll go
No.
now. I was going to say Rangers, but to make things interesting, I'm going to say Leafs. The Leafs are, I think that win against Boston after being down 3-0 wasn't just a win, it was a statement win. And it's a statement saying, hey, this is a different team now. So I think I'm going to win 4 on the wall.
All right, Chazzy, you got to break the tiebreaker here. Do you think Dan's right, or do you think I'm right? Remember, I'm the one who hits record.
I'll stick with the record button. Give me the Rangers.
So now let's get into some of our custom props here. Will Austin Matthews score at least one goal in the Rangers versus the Leafs? He's been struggling of late. Chazzy, you're saying yes?
Yes.
I'm saying yes. Dan is shaking his head no with a thunderous roar.
I think he's 4 games back since. He's got 1 out of 4 games. He's due.
It was empty netter.
3 or 4 times against Boston.
It was an empty netter. So, yeah, he's overdue.
He's overdue. He's overdue like a library book.
Oh.
Now, we've also been talking Morgan Riley. Will Morgan Riley pop one in the net? Chazzy's saying no. Dan?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes. I think Morgan Riley's going to get on a roll. And I'm going to give you guys one more that I didn't put on the script. Okay. Will we see a fight?
I was going to say that. If Ryan Reeves gets in the lineup.
No ifs, this, ifs, who. Yes or no? Fight, yay or nay?
Yes, Matt Wempe. Let's go.
Chazzy, are we seeing a fight on Friday night?
No.
I'm saying yes to the Friday night fisticuffs. Now, we need to take a break, so I'm going to punch out right after this. The Streakers Island podcast is here, baby. We're talking NHL, CFL, NFL, and of course, those grassroots sports and so much more. Make sure you tune in every Tuesdays and Thursdays. Welcome to the island. Welcome back, everybody, to the Streakers Island podcast. And Chazzy, I thought he was getting his milk for this segment, but instead he got the pigskin.
Yep.
He's going to drink
bacon
blood, I guess.
I'm just checking out where they're going to put this microchip.
Let's get right into that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and talk about...
And dogs and cats.
We might be losing the chain gang in the NFL. Unless they're going to be there for show and if the chip malfunctions. But the NFL would like to add tracking into the ball to tell where the first down is.
And how much air's in it.
Yeah.
It's a good thing Brady retired. Maybe he'll come back again just so he can play with the new ball.
I know that's your favorite play.
No.
But I'm going to say this right off the hop. I think this is because of all the controversy in the playoffs with the Bills, whether it was a first down or not.
For sure, yeah.
I think, again, the NFL is realizing the fans are starting to get frustrated where they feel the technology's there. Why aren't we using it? Tennis has had this technology for over 10 years. I want you to think about that.
Yeah.
And the NFL has a lot more money than the Tennis Association.
Yeah, wow. Tennis isn't poor.
It's not poor, but it's not NFL rich. NFL is one of the richest sports in the entire world. Let's just be completely honest here. Mm-hmm. So fans were getting frustrated about that. Now, my question is, if this chip malfunctions when it's close, is this just going to slow down the game? That's my only concern about this. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you think this could slow down the game a little bit? Because I think it could, because we may see a lot more video review because of the chips.
Oh, that's why.
So how are you seeing more video review with the chips?
Yeah,
because I feel more coaches are going to say when they don't know if it's a first down or not, well, go check the software, and they're just going to use that to try to get a free timeout.
But aren't they going to? Isn't the ball going to be the first point? So wherever the ball is, that's first down.
But what if the refs, I guess the refs, whatever, they say it's not a first down, and then the coaches start arguing, and then they want to challenge it, and then they got to go to the computers and check the software on the ball. I think it could make the challenges faster, but are we going to see more people challenging if it was a first down or not?
Well,
that's my concern.
You lose a timeout if you lose the challenge, don't you?
But are we going to see more? You know, when the coaches argue enough and then the league decides to review something even though the coach didn't challenge it just to keep the coach happy? Are we going to see more of that? Because people will say that doesn't happen. It does.
I could see, okay, maybe if it's going to be more on the ref who places the ball. That might be where it is on. Yeah, you could be right. If they're going to see where the play was the ball marked properly, I could see that extending a little bit, but I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to shorten it, and maybe not as many long look under the hood replays where, like we just saw in the playoffs. I think what they say automatic replay. Oh, it's automatic, and then they kept the play going. Whatever that was, they just kept the play going.
Right.
Which obviously sped up. Coaches seemed to like it. No one was barking about it. So,
see, I agree with Chazzy. I think if anything, it's going to speed it up.
I think it might speed up each individual video replay, but I think we could see more video replays.
Possibly on the markings of the ball. If the coaches are not liking where the ref marked the ball, by all means, they're going to look at the video.
And again, it's just going to be interesting. How quickly can the data go from the ball to the tablet? We don't know that yet. Tennis, it's instant, right? Just like your instant breakfast where you put your milk in. But we don't know. I like that the NFL is addressing an issue that the fans have been complaining about. I think that looks really good on the league because let's be honest, the NFL and transparency have not gone hand in hand over the last 20 years. And I think there's been more of a decline in transparency in the NFL over this time. The technology is there. I'm all for trying it. I just hope we don't see video reviews on every single one that's a close marking.
So do you maybe try and
let the ref make first? Sometimes I think you've got to let the ref make the call. We don't want AI officiating a game because they'll never be able to tell. Like, let's be honest, every single play there's holding. I just get worried that are we going too far into it? I don't mind this. I just hope it doesn't go much further than this. And maybe as a Bills fan, I sound a little crazy because people are arguing they lost over that not being called a first down. At the end of the day, the defense still could have made the stop. But I get where you guys are coming from with it, but I hope you get where I'm coming from, which is from Newmarket. That's where I was born.
Hope it's not a plan, though.
So then, you know what? Speaking of NFL changes and Dan making random catchphrases from random commercials, the NFL is looking to change their overtime rules in the regular season. We saw it a few times again this year, especially the Chiefs winning off a coin toss. Mm-hmm. And I think the fans have had it. They see other leagues that do not have this issue. Now, we don't know exactly if it's going to be like the playoff format of overtime because I do think they're going to let games end in a tie still in the regular season. But what kind of playoff format would you guys like to see? Chazzy, I know you and I were talking off camera about that NCAA
collegiate
format is actually pretty exciting.
Well, yeah, exactly. You get them in just outside the red zone. You get one series to get in, and you go back and forth until what is it? I think it's a third try. Then you got to go for the 2-point conversion. To make it interesting, but yeah, I think it's be a good idea to bring in at least for a test pilot.
I wouldn't mind that in the regular season. I think in the playoffs, you got to go just pure overtime.
Yes.
But in the regular season, you go that route. The CFL uses a very similar one, except they start the 35 instead of the 25. I think partially just because of where the goalposts are, right? They're making it where, like, if you don't get a first down, it's not a chip shot field goal. But I could see them going that route. Or do you spice things up? And I'm not talking spicy like a junior chicken from McDonald's, because that's too spicy for this man.
Way too spicy.
But
holy cow.
do you go the route of the XFL where they just basically go for 2-point conversions? That would be a really fast way in the regular season to get through overtime.
Almost like an NHL shootout.
So each team gets a series, though?
Yes. And I do like that the NFL's talking some rule changes, though. I think that it
has to change.
The league's becoming boring. Dan, go ahead.
Number two, I say why fix it if it ain't broken. You look at the CFL; they got a great way. Why not just adapt the CFL rules? Oh, I need to grab your circus book again. Like, that's not crazy. Oh, dude.
We just paused waiting for the book.
Yeah,
that the NFL, we need some change to the overtime format in the regular season. I think in the playoffs, you stick with what they have now, where each team gets a possession and it just goes back and forth until someone wins.
I think the fans wouldn't mind that. Give both teams a chance to score a touchdown, though.
That's what fans
100%.
want. Fans are sick and tired of watching games end on basically a coin toss. And I get the defense can make a stop. I get that.
Yeah.
But let's be real here. That would be like an NHL shootout if one team scores and it's going, okay, goodbye.
Yeah, literally, yeah.
It wouldn't feel finished.
Yeah.
The NFL doesn't feel finished in these games. And they need to do something because, to be blunt, people are complaining the National Football League's becoming the no-fun league. So something has to change.
It'll be literally like if you did the NBA overtimes, like first point wins. That'd be a quick overtime, yeah.
We got to bring the Sharpies back during touchdown celebrations.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? It's not on the script, but let's get into that. Should the NFL also stop finding so many people for these creative touchdown celebrations? The fans want it.
Entertainment.
The fans want it. And what people need to realize at the end of the day, this is an entertainment business. And the fans want to be entertained. Can you imagine if we could add a prop, which you can do that in the Streakers app? Will AJ Brown pull a book out of his boxers when he gets the touchdown? Right? Like, that would be more entertaining if we can do these things. I remember back in the day when the guy pulled a cell phone out of the uprights, or T.O. signing the football, and then quotes. They're pretty talented.
Yeah.
Like, it was more entertaining then. And I think the NFL has to find ways to do that. And I think a way to do that is to let the players have a little more fun with it.
I think we saw that in the All-Star game or just before the Super Bowl there, the skills competition. Because if you saw during the game, what did they do when they scored? They went into the ball pit or whatever that the foam pit. The whole defense or the whole offense, and they had a heck of a time. So why not let the players celebrate and they get a touchdown? You're getting a touchdown in the NFL, like let them celebrate.
I agree with you. Like, at the end of the day, like, they try to act like they're doctors and lawyers walking in their 3-piece $1,000 suits. At the end of the day, you're playing football and having fun for a living. Yes,
and they're in the candy store when they scored a touchdown. Let's be real.
Look how boring baseball is if I hit a home run. Like, there's no.
Well, depending on how far it's hit and how much you got of the ball.
And it also depends if you're Batista or not when you do the bat flip and you change.
Yeah, but see how legendary that was. And the reason why that was so legendary is no one else in baseball does it. If everyone celebrated the bat flip, wouldn't it be so cool? I think the NFL should embrace more celebration. Same with baseball. I want them to jump around when they hit a home run like Jimmy Carter did back in the 90s, you know?
No, I think the NFL, I think it's good that they're trying to find some ways to make the game more entertaining. This wasn't on the script either, but I'm just going to throw this out here anyways. Let's get rid of onside kicks and change it to a 1st and 20. A 4th and 20 play, you got to convert a first down 20 yards. If you convert it, you keep the ball.
Sorry, run that again?
Okay, so instead of an onside kick, The offense has to get a 4th and 20, meaning they have one play to get 20 yards for a first down. If they get it, they keep the ball. If they don't get it, the defense gets the ball back.
See, I disagree with you, Jacob. I don't think the onside kick is the problem. I think the problem is you have to declare to the other team when it's an onside kick.
They're not changing that. But
they should change it. Like
onside, they are not changing the kickoff with what they tried this year, even though I thought the kickoff this year was terrible.
Boring. Like just take it out of the game completely and just have everyone start at 20-yard line. Like it was that boring.
Like Chazzy, what are your thoughts there? Like I'm sure you remember back in the day, onside kicks were exciting, and last year they were terrible.
It seems to be more year after year. It becomes more irrelevant of the onside kick. We used to see more onside kicks being recovered back in the day than we are now. You see the odd one, unless you don't make it 10 yards, make it 5 yards, shorten that up. But I think you still keep the onside kick. We're just not seeing as many successful onside kicks. I don't know what it is, but
they're not going to be successful when they're telling the other team that they're going to do it. That would be like Alexander Ovechkin.
No, I don't think you can tell them to do it.
But that's what the NFL does now. You have
That's what I'm saying. That's the problem.
When you kick an onside kick.
No.
To non-football fans, that would be like Alexander Ovechkin going on a breakaway and saying to the goalie, "Hello, I am going to fake a shot and then go backhand just above the pad. I will let you know when I shoot the puck." And in 3, 2, 1, save. Yeah, Owen Nolan did it in an all-star game, which was
cool. He did it in a real game.
It was an all-star game.
I think it's a real game, bud.
It wasn't all. That's just how good all-star games used to be back in the day. But let's just be real here. The NFL has to find. I do appreciate that they're trying to improve the game because
100%.
TV viewership was down this year.
Don't want to turn into basketball.
Not enough that I think they're overly concerned, but they look at the NBA and they've waited too long to make changes, and they've lost a lot of their viewership.
And butts and seats.
So I think, and beer kegs in bellies. So they got to find something here. But let's move on to some off-season stuff in the NFL, and let's talk about the Rams, who want to rumored moving on from Matthew Stafford.
Stupid.
Wouldn't he look nice in Vegas?
I mean, yeah. But like, I don't understand. You win, you make it out of the wild card, you get to the next round, and you almost beat the Eagles. That game was close.
It was, yeah.
I don't understand blowing this team up.
Makes no sense to me.
If you trade Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, which are two guys that are rumored to be on the way out, now apparently Aaron Rodgers wants to go there with Devontae Adams so they can hold hands and eat ice cream together. But I don't think that's a solution either. If you're going to go with an older quarterback, just stick with Stafford.
Yeah.
The only way this makes sense is if they move on from Matthew Stafford and they bring in Sam Darnold. That's the
I don't think Minnesota should move on for Darnold either.
There's a very good chance the Vikings move on from Darnold.
I don't get that.
I do, because they drafted McCarthy to do that, and this was the plan all along for Darnold to play the 1 year when McCarthy got injured.
Go Aaron Rodgers to go to Minnesota.
So you going McCarthy right from week 1?
I wouldn't, but I think the Vikings might. But Chazzy, what are your thoughts on the Rams kind of blowing up? Like, do you understand this?
Well, the Cooper Kupp, we said it earlier on the island, like his production went down from week 6 or week 7 this year, where he wasn't getting the targets. Puka was getting them all.
He was injured too.
So, like, Cooper Kupp was on his way out anyway. Well, he was hurt there a little bit, but he came back. He was still a lethal threat out there. So yeah, if you move, like we see these merry-go-rounds of quarterbacks in the NFL go all the time. Him and Tom Brady met on the ski hill. Who knows? They may have had some cappuccino on their way down and had a conversation. But I think it would be exciting if you ended up in Vegas. But with the game now, yeah, you go. The Cooper Kupp was on his way out. It would be interesting to see if they move on from Stafford, because he's such a weapon, and we average 275 yards a game in the air. Like you said, they're a piece away. Like they just lost to the Eagles. That was it, right? So
And when I say they lost, it came down to under 30 seconds left.
It was close. Like, it was
yeah.
close. Yeah.
I really think if I'm the management group at the Rams, I'm building up, not building down.
But don't forget, the Rams had cap trouble going into this season.
But I think moving
Yeah, that's
Matthew
true.
Stafford, even if you bring in Sam Darnold, is building down, not up.
Yeah.
I agree, but what's that quarterback contract? $50 million?
Around there.
Yeah.
I think you find a way to keep Cooper Kupp and Stafford. I don't think it's time to blow up yet.
I think Kupp's on his way out. Stafford we'll see where he goes or what happens.
I can see Cooper Kupp because Puka Nacua kind of took over that main role.
Yeah.
I don't understand moving on from Matthew Stafford unless you go with a younger guy that you think can be good for the next 5 to 6 years. If you move on from Matthew Stafford and bring in Aaron Rodgers, well,
that doesn't make sense.
And you are no longer running the circus because of the Rams management. Dr. Steuss must know. But
come on, Rodgers can perform down in that stadium indoors.
Yeah, he can perform great. It just won't be great football. He'll put on a great performance on the Pat McAfee podcast. He'll come on the Streakers Island podcast.
Jeopardy.
He can go on Jeopardy. He can become Vanna White on Wheel of Fortune. Like, who knows what he's going to do? But he's not going to play good football.
He might become a horse.
Like, I saw the greatest meme about the New York Jets saying the Jets have announced they're going to lose just without Aaron Rodgers. Because it's like, it clearly, all they did was blame Zach Wilson. It's Zach Wilson's fault. Zach Wilson's fault. You were better with Zach Wilson.
Yeah, 100%.
Literally.
Yeah.
So when people are saying, oh, the Rams should move on from Matthew Stafford and bring in Aaron Rodgers, no, the Rams may as well just go to the XFL if they're going to do that.
I agree.
I
It doesn't
don't
make sense.
understand. That would be like when the Edmonton Oilers lost in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. They say, we're going to blow up Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. We're trading you both. And we're going to bring in Patrick Kane and Joe Thornton. It wouldn't make any sense.
No.
0 cents. And if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Yeah, chewing it.
But you know what does make sense? Chazzy trading in his football for a big old glass of milk. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into some Argos situations. Are they better? Are they worse? We'll let you know. Well, at least what we think. Right after this break.
Come on in. Oh, there's an opportunity knocking right there. All right, Streakers.
More for your money.
Big news.
Yeah.
We have more for your money joining the Streakers Nation and the team. It takes a village to do something that we want to pull off. We're so excited. So download the latest Streakers app. Watch for the updates. Watch for more happening. Coming for more for your money. Let's go streaking.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Streakers Island podcast. And you know what? I saw Chazzy with his football earlier, but I figure in Canada we got to talk about our big balls. So let's get into the NFL here. I mean the CFL here, and talk about the Toronto Argonauts.
Argos.
Toronto Argonauts are coming off let's just be honest here, a surprising Grey Cup victory. No one was expecting them to win. They were 12.5-point underdogs going into that game.
I was at the game. I was on
And
TV.
as the offseason settled down, where are they? Are they better than what they were last year? Are they worse? Or are they kind of around the same? Which around the same isn't a bad thing when you're just coming off a Grey Cup. But just to kind of break it down, instead of going over all the players, I just kind of want to go over some of the core areas. I would argue the running game has improved. Yes, you lost Dan Anababoye, but you brought in Kevin Brown, you kept Kadeem Carey, and you kept McMahon. The quarterback group, I would argue you have 2 guys who can start in Chad Kelly and Nick Arbuckle, and you could make the case for Cameron Duke, over 500 starter.
Yeah.
The defensive line got worse. Let's just be completely honest here. It got a lot younger. You lost Robbie Smith, Flo, and Serezna.
Yeah.
And you still haven't signed Haggerty as your punter, who was the second best hang time punter in the entire league last year. Best percentage of pinning the opposing team within the 15 yards.
I'm shocked they haven't signed him yet. That's a very underrated position.
I mean, the only thing I wonder with them is, are they talking to Boris Beatty and keeping Laram? And then, and if you're in cap hell, do you just have one kicker and pray he doesn't get hurt?
What about Halalalu? He's amazing.
What's what I'm saying, though. So you just stick with him and have him do both, because he did both in one game and it worked out.
True.
I don't like that situation, but did the Argos get better or worse? The receiving core pretty much stayed the same. I'd say the offense looks ready to go. The only guy they really lost in the offense is Tommy Neal, who didn't really have a real spot anyways.
Mm-hmm.
I think they got a little worse just because of the defensive line. And they also lost to Sean Amos in the DB group. And I know they brought in some more DBs. And they also lost Royce Mechie. So the defense, I think, got a little less experienced, we'll say. So right now, we got to say worse. I think the Argos are still a contender, but I don't think they're as stacked as they were last year. Dan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I am an Argo fan, as everyone in the podcast should know by now. But I hate to say it. I think the Argos got worse. I think they won first grade cups based on that defensive line, and now it's not there anymore. Now, I will say, though, by getting these inexperienced CFL players, correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, a lot of players, if they signed, would technically be rookies to the CFL, right? Like they were college kids or came from their mother's wombs, who knows? So they came from somewhere, okay? So once they get into the CFL, they could be very good. So it could be a whole wild card thing. For we know, they could even be better. We don't know. But if I had to predict now, I'm going to say they got worse because of that defense. I think they did the right thing by keeping the core. I would have let Cameron Dukes walk, to be honest, but that's just me. I would have put some money in from Cameron Dukes into the defensive line. But we do have 3 great quarterbacks, which is awesome. For winning game this stronger, I'm okay losing Tommy Neal. Sorry, dude, you're a nice dude. And how about Baboye? I'm sexily lose you. You're a great dude. But I would have liked to add another big-time wide receiver to play with Chad Kelly.
The Argos don't need more receivers. They already got Coxie, Daniels, Ungerer. I think Mattal is going to have a really big breakout year. Makai Polk still could come back, and Rolf Howie could come back. But I do want to say on the defense, I don't think we're giving the players they kept enough credit. They still do have some really solid players.
Oh, 100%.
And their linebacking core with keeping McManus and adding Cameron Judge, I would argue got better.
Right.
So I think I agree with you, Dan, they got worse, but I'm going to say only slightly worse. I'm seeing people saying, oh, this team's not going to be able to defend. They're going to have to win games 50-42.
No, I'm not saying that.
If they do that, it'll be exciting. I can't wait to go to BMO Field and watch Chad Kelly put up 50. But
hey, I think the defensive line just got to eat more lasagna. They got to beef up, you know? They got to get some.
So last year's our Grey Cup squad, if you guys were looking at the roster at this time last year, were you guys saying the same thing? This is no way that this is a Grey Cup team? Or are you sort of on the same sort of page as, okay, it's same expectations, sort of same down because you guys know that you just won the Grey Cup, but you had the same expectations that you had going into last year?
Okay, so the expectations, it depends if you ask me before the Chad Kelly suspension or after.
Why did I say that?
And we're not going to get into the politics of the suspension because it's over and done with. But the worry last year was the defensive back group. And the defensive back group found a way to bend but not break. But it was always the defensive line was so dominant. This year, the big difference is for the first time in this Ryan Dinwiddie era, there's questions at the D-line. The Ryan Dinwiddie era and the Pinball Clemens era has always been built from the line out. With their really strong offensive line, their really strong defensive line. Now, I'm not saying the lines aren't going to be strong.
They're just young
players.
There's question marks this year, right?
And just question marks. And it'll be interesting once we get into preseason football, which is only, a couple months away. Interested to see how these guys do. That's where I'm just curious. But Chaz, to answer your question there, I'm in a similar position to where I was this time last year. Question marks, but at the same time, I feel I trust in the Argonauts coaching staff, which is the same thing I said about Winnipeg earlier in the week when everyone's freaking out about last week, everyone's freaking out about Winnipeg. But at the end of the day, you got to trust that coaching staff. They've been in the Grey Cup 5 times. Yeah. They obviously know who they should keep. The Argos have won the Grey Cup twice in the last 3 years, been in the conference finals 3 straight years. I think they know what pieces they need.
I disagree.
So I'm confident but cautious.
I disagree. Last year, I felt very confident in this group. Even without Chad Kelly, I was very confident and buckle up.
Lies.
I like him. And I was concerned about Cameron Dukes, but Cameron Dukes proved me wrong. He played very well. And I felt like this team, besides the quarterback, had a full team. I was confident I had a good chance to win the Grey Cup. This year, however, I feel like they're a little weaker because of their defensive line. So I hope they can win the Grey Cup in Winnipeg. And I still think they got a good chance of winning the East. But Hamilton does look pretty strong this year of all the moves they did in the offseason. So,
and let's be honest here, the East and the CFL and the West, I think this is the first year in a long time it's wide open and across the whole league.
I agree. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, could jump or fall this year. I think we could see teams that were terrible, like Calgary, for example, who were at the bottom of the basement. I could see them winning the West. I could see Hamilton, who was at the bottom of the East, competing for top in the East.
Yeah,
I could see Montreal, that was top in the East, falling down and really struggling to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
like it's same with Toronto. This is the year that is completely wide open.
Yeah.
Which, it isn't wide open. The Boston Bruins window for playoff success. I think that window is closing in Boston. I'm going to, my maniacal fingers.
Just got to creak. You're just saying it got to crack.
There's not much left. And if there's a crack in Boston, Brad Marchand's going to find a way to push through it. But he is the type of guy that wills his teams into playoffs.
Yeah, but if this dynasty is over and you move him, where does he go? Like where?
It is tough to figure out where he goes. I'm going to say if Edmonton decides that they don't care about their defense, I'd love to see Brad Marchand go to Edmonton.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, he had Corey Perry there last year.
Bring him there to run that second line, move Nugent Hopkins over to the wing, and you got an amazing 1-2 punch at Edmonton, right? I could see that. You guys might laugh at me when I say this. I could see Columbus. They do need a really strong center. Rest in peace, Johnny Gaudreau.
Isn't Brad Marchand a winger?
He plays wing and center. Get wrecked.
I would play him as a wing, but
I'd put him as a center.
I think Brad Marchand goes to Colorado.
Yeah, they got the room.
Like, Natchez has played really well in Colorado. And, I feel like Colorado, when they won the Cup, Nazem Kadri is that missing piece. And they haven't replaced Nazem Kadri yet. They need that pesky, talented player. I think only a handful of players can compete with Kadri. I think one of them will be Brad Marchand. So I see him going to Colorado.
Does he go to Ottawa? There's been talks about Brady Tkachuk on his way out in Ottawa.
No, come on.
There has.
No, come on.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's going to
hold the circus book up if you're getting rid of Brady Tkachuk.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah.
Got to call Shane. Yeah.
So wait, then Chazzy, if Brady Tkachuk gets traded, will you cut a single strand of hair with the scissors that scare Dan?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, but then, so the way we're talking, are you guys all saying that Boston should sell this year? They're 8 points out of third in the division.
Oh.
They're 2 points out of a wild card. Then why are you saying
think Boston's going to buy themselves into a wild card?
Yeah, but is that good enough for the Bruins fans to get a wild card and go out first round to a Washington?
They're not going to go out first round.
You think this team could beat the Capitals? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Look at LA. When LA won the Cup, when LA won the Cup, they were in 8th spot. Okay? You get guys like Brad Marchand and Pasternak and Charlie McAvoy. If they get better goaltending, if they get into the playoffs, they have a good chance of winning the whole.
Yeah, the last time the Kings won the Cup was when they played 1 versus 8, and they did it the correct way for the playoff seeding.
There is no way in anything The only way the Bruins can beat the Capitals is if Ovechkin retires, Logan Thompson breaks a hip, Gary Bettman decides to let Boston play 6 forwards instead of 5. It's not happening. No. That's why I think Boston should sell, because I don't see Boston as a bubble team that could make a run. Like the Detroit Red Wings, for example. You'll laugh at me. I think the Red Wings are a bubble team that could actually win a couple rounds.
Where's my circus book?
In your butt.
Oh, it's no way.
Jesse, do you agree with me that Boston is a bubble team that if they make it, it's going to get out first round?
Yes.
So why buy?
I'm not saying buy. I'm just saying if you're saying to blow it up, the first piece would out of town would be Marchand. If you're going to really shake it up, because he's got a contract coming up.
He does.
Expiring contract. What is he? 36?
Around 37? There. He's getting paid $6 million right now, and he's in his mid-30s. Mm-hmm. So he's going to probably get between 5 to 7 around the John Tavares contract that's coming up. And if you're Boston, I don't know if you want an aging Brad Marchand to rebuild around, because I think they do need to rebuild, because Jeremy Swayman this year at least has not worked, and maybe next year he will. But I look at this Boston team, and if they find a way to somehow get into the divisional round, the only way they have a chance if they face Toronto, if Toronto holds first in the division, because Toronto can't beat them in the playoffs, and then they'll go out second round against Florida. I don't see this team going on a run, and I don't think Bruins fans are happy with mediocrity. I think they'd rather suck for a year or two and get back to the Cup Finals again. Then this just, we're okay. And that's what they've been the last couple of years. They've just been okay.
Yeah.
Just okay. Mm-hmm. How about Brad Marchand to Detroit?
No, you're going to say that.
Get Marchand to play with Dylan Larkin.
Oh, you and Dylan Larkin.
Patty Kane.
Used to be Dylan Larkin's agent.
Brad Marchand.
Dylan Larkin and what's the other guy you like suck? Brock Nelson.
Brock Nelson doesn't. Oh, whatever.
You could be their agents. I swear to God. No disrespect, guys.
Quickly then, Dan, Boston Bruins, buyers or sellers at the deadline?
Buy.
That's a lie. Chazzy, buyers or sellers?
Hold.
I'll give you a third option because you're the CEO. Buyer, seller, or hold true and just go with what you got.
I'd say hold true, but may sell a piece or two.
I'm going to say sellers. I think this is time to move all your expiring contracts that you don't think are going to get done or you don't think are building blocks. Because I don't see this team going on a cup run. Now, again, as Dan pointed out, once you make the dance, anything can happen. But Chazzy, as you pointed out, we haven't seen that in the new playoff format.
Mm-hmm. True.
But let's move on to another team that I think is going to be selling at some point. And I know it's only spring training, but let's get into the Toronto Blue Jays here. The Toronto Blue Jays, I would argue one of their biggest issues last year was the bullpen. Could we all agree to that?
Yes.
Wow. That's a first on the street.
Yes.
Okay. We look at the bullpen now, and Chazzy, you think on paper they look better?
Well, not too bad. You got Chad Green, you got Hoffman as potentially your closer. The only wild card is some of these young arms that we've never seen before coming up, and can they crack the big league club, right? So, and injuries throughout the year, right? So it's going to be interesting because we're talking about like you're just core staff, let alone depth to that core staff once the season starts and you fill some of those holes. So some of the names look great, but again, they got to go out and perform.
Yeah. We look at a guy they just brought in like Jacob Barnes in his first spring training game. Let's just be real. He looked
lit.
He got lit, fam. 2 hits, 3 earned runs.
We like to call the gas cans.
And I get that it's spring training and it's early, but what's worried me about the Jays too, and so far just watching a bit of spring training ball, we're not winning with pitching.
Yeah,
there's been some games we're scoring 7-8 runs. We're not going to do that consistently, especially if they end up trading Vladdy Guerrero.
Yeah,
like let's just be real here. He's your slugger.
Like
it'd be like if the Yankees got rid of Aaron Rodgers and then didn't have not Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers playing baseball now. Oh, that'd be cool to see.
Aaron Judge.
You watch Matt Romano will win a World Series in Philadelphia now. You watch.
That one really bothered me, actually, getting rid of Matt Romano. And I get he had some injury problems, but when he was healthy, he was such a good closer.
Still bothers me we got rid of Price when we did.
Okay, but that was years ago. Move on. Read a book.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm saying Jays have a bad track record of not keeping guys long enough. That's
and with, I think, the lack of scoring this team's going to have, I don't know about, we look at some of the middle relief guys like Brandon Little. I'm on the fence on him still. He's still really young. He had some good times last year and he had some really bad times last year. I still am really hoping Nate Pearson finds his game. He's a guy I still really like and throw that 100-mile-an-hour fastball if he can learn to control it. I don't know. I really don't know what, and I get it, spring training. It's too early to tell. But I'm looking at a lot of the Jays relieving pitcher guys, and they are in that like 3 to 3.5 ERA range. And I don't know if that's going to be enough on a team that can't hit. Dan, I can tell you're bored. I'm sorry.
No, not that. I was just going to say the other problem with Jays too, we don't really talk about, is not so much the team and the bullpen and all of this. It's the division that they play in. It's the hardest division in baseball. And especially in baseball with no salary cap, you're going against a team like the Yankees and the Mets that just handed out $700 million plus to Stanton and other top players. I think we will see $1 billion contract in our lifetime. And I think it's going to be a baseball player in this division. So it's a tough division to compete against. I'm not trying to make excuses for the boys, but let's just be real.
Yeah, I get it to a point. You sound like a Leaf fan when they always complain about the Atlantic, and I am a Leaf fan, by the way.
The divisions haven't changed in years. It's not going to change.
I just don't like excuses. I think you have to find ways to win. Then why are the Yankees and the Red Sox competitive? And remember how bad the Tampa Bay Rays were years ago, back when they were the Devil Rays. They sucked.
Yeah.
They don't suck anymore,
No.
right? So, and Baltimore's not that great. So it's not like the whole division stacked.
You're owned by a media company. You have just as much.
And you got the money.
It's not the money at all. So you just got to spend it.
Money.
Spend it in the right areas, though.
People go on, well, it's because Canada's taxed higher, but there's no salary cap, so just pay them more.
Yeah, true.
Right? So I don't know about the Jays, but you know what I do know? Luka Doncic has a fire. I don't know if you guys watched the Lakers versus Mavs game, but I at least saw the highlights.
Yeah.
And that was I think there's a photo. They said this is the coldest photo of the year.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Hey, you know what my favorite moment of that game was? He hits a deep three, and he just looks at the Dallas bench and stares at him.
It was in our group chat, just like the Kentucks.
He was so mad because they basically said to him, "Bro, you're lazy. Get a life."
But then he did push-ups during the warm-up or whatever. And he started doing push-ups.
And finished
that's right.
And finished that game 19 points, 15 rebounds, 12 assists, while struggling from three.
Holy cow.
He was only 1 for 7 from 3-point range, but it didn't matter because he was so dominant. And one thing I love too, LeBron James in that game, when it was over, he just let it be Luka's moment, right? Yeah. He just walked away and let Luka take the spotlight. Because I still think that's LeBron's team, LeBron James. But I think Luka Doncic had something to prove. And as much as he is still settling in the Lakers, he's not putting up the same numbers he was in Dallas, but he won't because he was the guy in Dallas and the offense is still going to run through LeBron, right? So it's going to take some time.
Couple things on that. I guess one of the parking lots around the stadium there, Luka bought out for all the fans to have free parking for that game. And then a stat coming out of that game was Luka is the third player in NBA to actually have a triple-double versus all the teams, besides LeBron and Russ Westbrook.
Wow.
Russell.
Well, Russell Westbrook is Mr. Triple-Double. I swear he missed a shot.
Well, that guy is – I don't know why that guy gets so much slack, but he has got to be one of the best
all-around players.
All-round basketball players. That guy's on both ends of the court. And just like you said, you look at his stat line – like he's consistent across each.
He's so underrated for whatever reason.
but he's ever since after Oklahoma City, like wherever he's been moved, he sort of hasn't gotten that. Like he's an absolute Hall of Famer, but he doesn't get sort of that Hall of Famer talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know it's true.
Can you imagine if Steph Curry put up a triple-double every game for basically a season?
Yeah,
everyone would say he's better than Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
When Russell Westbrook doesn't go, it's just Russell Westbrook. Who cares? I don't get it.
No, I don't get it. I really don't get it with Russ.
Something else I still don't get. After this, I still don't get that trade for the Mavs, trading Doncic.
Well, they didn't like his healthy hookah and beer
Man, if he's putting up 30 points a game, I don't care if he shows up still hungover.
Well, look at Phil Kessel. We know his hot dogs. He's got 2 Stanley Cups to prove it.
Exactly, because he scores and he performs.
He
does what he says he's going to do. You can't falter that.
Like when the trade happened, we compared it to the Rantanen trade, saying it didn't make any sense for one team. Well, now it looks like it made perfect sense for Colorado Avalanche trading Rantanen.
Well, I don't know that.
Luke, I do. Nate just is playing way better than Rantanen is. But
yeah, but even so, look at how good the Rantanen would play with still in Colorado. I don't
putting up the same points as Nate just for way more money. But we look at the Luka Doncic trade, it still makes no sense for Dallas.
No.
I don't even think Anthony Davis is healthy.
I was going to say, has he played yet?
I don't. I'm not.
I think that the Lakers could win a whole championship now because of his trade.
I mean, you got the 2 superstars to do it, but this is a trade that will really confuse me. I think we're going to be very interesting to look at this trade 3 or 4 years from now.
Yeah.
Or even at the end of this year, which
I was going to say, even at the end of this year.
We're definitely
next year.
Next year, for sure.
We'll definitely have to do a Streakers Island Revisited Topics episode where we just go over some of the topics.
Oh, that'll be a good one, yeah. Streakers Island replay.
Streakers Island replay. We're coming up with ideas on the fly here, folks.
Literally.
But before we fly away from the show tonight, or this morning, depending on when you're listening, or this afternoon, or whatever, Dan, what is your island mindset for the day? Or did you forget one? You look like
I'm literally wearing my island mindset today. Today's Thursday, but yesterday, Wednesday, which we started the air on Wednesday, so Wednesday's a good topic. Wednesday was National Pink Shirt Day. What happened is back in 2007, can't believe it's 18 years ago. Holy moly, it makes me feel old because I remember when this actually happened. But a young boy, high school, was bullied like crazy because he decided to wear a pink shirt. Well, you know what? I think pink makes a man look tough. It's the color of salmon, and fisting is a very manly thing. But besides the point, the idea of the story is don't make fun of people for what they wear. That's why I'm wearing my pink Valentine's Day outfit, even though Valentine's Day had passed, with my pink suit and my pink checkered shirt. I don't know if you all can see in the camera, but very pink, very lovely. And imagine how much better the world would be if people didn't have to worry about what they wear and if they got made fun of. Someone wants to wear pink, if someone wants to wear polka dots, whatever, let them be and make the world a better place. So that's the Streaker Island mindset for today.
Couldn't agree with you more. But I also have, this is a double header of mindsets today. Because I have one.
Wow.
I am going to say for our viewers in Ontario, and this works for everyone, but it really is Ontario specific. Today is election day. I'm not going to tell you who to vote.
Oh, yeah.
We're not political here on the island. But do your civic duty and vote. It's important to be a part of the process and be a part of the positive change you want to see. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining the Streakers Island podcast. Looking for more Streakers Island content? You won't find it in your glass of milk. You'll find it on our social media. So head over to TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, our YouTube channel. Give us a call. Do whatever you want. Make sure you download the Streakers app today. Find out more about the props. There's going to be some more information on that on the Streakers LinkedIn, Streakers Gaming and Corporate. So make sure you're getting in there and learn more about the app. Chazzy is an encyclopedia to it. So thank you very much.
1v1.
Hashtag 1v1. That announcement's coming once the sun versus the snow is finished. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us on the island. I hope you brought your canoes. We'll see you on Tuesday.
Bye-bye.